Good evening. You're watching Just the News. I'm Amita Balachandra. We're going to start off today's bulletin with the severe economic crisis that Sri Lanka is facing at the moment. In the wake of this economic crisis, there's shortage of fuel and essentials in the entire country. NDTV has reported that there are fresh reports that are being reported with protesters resorting to throwing stones at the residence of the mayor of Moratwa, which falls under the main administrative province of the island nation, demanding electricity. Now, there's been about 13-hour blackout in Sri Lanka, and the power minister said that this is to conserve electricity. In fact, they've gone a step further, and officials now have been instructed to shut off street lights around the country to help conserve power as well. Sri Lanka is also facing its worst inflation. According to Reuters, retail inflation has hit 18.7% in March over the same period a year ago. Now, there were also overnight protests that took place just last night, where 54 people now have been arrested after protests turned violent. Hundreds of protesters are demanding the government to step down. The protest took place in front of the president's house. Now, police imposed an overnight curfew in several parts of Colombo, which was lifted today. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has said that it will initiate discussions with Sri Lankan authorities on a possible loan program in the coming days. According to Reuters, the discussion will follow President Rajapaksa's visit to Washington for talks with IMF officials. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has sought Prime Minister Narendra Modi's approval to allow the state government to provide humanitarian aid to Sri Lankan Tamils. Now, there are several reports that people are now coming into the state of Tamil Nadu, escaping unemployment and skyrocketing inflation in Sri Lanka. We continue to track that story for you, but we'll also focus on what's happening in Ukraine. It's day 37 of the crisis, a day after the US warned of consequences for countries attempting to circumvent American sanctions against Moscow. External Affairs Minister of India held talks with Russian Foreign Minister. So this is India's context of what's going on with the talks that took place between India and Russia amidst everything that's going on in Ukraine. While on his visit to India, Russian Foreign Minister today praised India's independent foreign policy and said if New Delhi wants to buy anything from Russia, I'm quoting him, we are ready to discuss it, end quote. That's what he said. Now, the high-level talks come in the backdrop of indications that India could buy greater volumes of discounted Russian oil. He also said, and I quote, India is an important and serious country. If India plays that role that provides resolution, India as a common partner, we are for security guarantee of Ukraine. West has ignored its responsibility. India can support such process, end quote. In the meantime, in the opening remarks at the talks, Jaishankar, referring to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, called for peace and dialogue and diplomacy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met with visiting Russian Foreign Minister this evening. According to the press statement, this is what has happened, and I quote, Prime Minister reiterated his call for an early cessation of violence and conveyed India's readiness to contribute in any way to peace efforts, end quote. Meanwhile, Russia's central bank has said today that it was softening restrictions on foreign fund transfers for individuals for a 6-month period. The bank said the measures, which raise an earlier limit on funds that can be transferred abroad, did not apply to residents and non-residents from countries that had imposed sanctions against Russia over Ukraine. Now, there are reports that Ukraine is now bracing for renewed attacks. Emergency relief and evacuation convoys for the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariupol remained in doubt today, following reports of Russian interference. Now, the governor of Ukraine's northern Chernihiv region said Russian troops are withdrawing from the region. Russia has said that Ukrainian helicopters attacked an oil depot in Belgorod, which is in Russian territory, they said. In other news now, this comes in from India, where COVID restrictions are being removed after West Bengal and Maharashtra. Now, Nagaland has lifted all COVID restrictions as the weekly COVID test positivity rate has remained below 2%. However, people have been advised to continue adhering to COVID appropriate behavior like wearing face masks in public places, including hand hygiene and maintaining physical distancing as well. Telangana also has lifted all COVID restrictions. However, face masks will be voluntary in Telangana except for the elderly, those with comorbidities, and pregnant women. In Delhi, Delhi has announced that it will stop imposing fines for not wearing masks. Earlier, the fine was 500 rupees, and this is according to the Hindustan Times. Meanwhile, in Karnataka, the police has said 5 Bajrang Dal workers were arrested in Bhadravati in Karnataka's Shivamogga district on Thursday in connection with 2 incidents of assault over the sale of halal meat. Now, Shivamogga Superintendent of Police has said that a group of 10 to 15 men, including the accused, went to a butcher shop around 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday and asked for non-halal meat. When the owner asked them to go away, the accused allegedly assaulted not just the owner but the owner's relative as well. Post that, there was another assault that took place in a hotel soon after, about an hour later. The accused allegedly attacked 2 people there, and this follows what happened in Bengaluru as well. 2 right-wing workers visited a market in Bengaluru's Chamarajpet area to urge people not to buy halal meat. Now, just a day before this, Chief Minister Basavaraj S. Bommai had said that he will look into serious objections raised against halal meat. Now, this campaign comes right after the hijab ban controversy that took place in Karnataka. It also comes just a day before Ugadi in Karnataka. Moving on to politics now, news coming in from Punjab. Punjab Chief Minister today moved a resolution in the State Assembly seeking the immediate transfer of Chandigarh to Punjab for maintaining harmony and taking sentiments of people into account. Now, the resolution has been moved against the centre's decision to put Chandigarh under central service rules. Now, Chandigarh is the joint capital of Punjab and Haryana. Moving on to science news right now, Jeff Bezos-led Blue Origin successfully completed its 4th manned mission with 6 crew members to space yesterday. Now, the crew landed safely back on Earth 10 minutes after the launch in the US. The New Shepard spacecraft blasted off at 8:59 a.m. CDT. It soared to an altitude of 66 miles. And before we wrap things up here on this bulletin, a piece of environment news, which is also good news. The European Commission is calling for an end to fast fashion by 2030, as it announced a vast expansion of eco-design rules that could in future apply to any product, starting with textiles. Now, the EU also wants large companies to disclose how much unsold stock they send to landfill as part of a wide-ranging plan to crack down on throwaway culture. Now, the EU Environment Commissioner said, and I quote, by 2030, textiles placed on the EU market should be long-lived and recyclable, made to a large extent of recycled fibers, end quote. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. For those who are celebrating, happy Gudi Padwa or Ugadi. We'll see you back on Monday with Just the News. Thank you so much for watching.